What if the laughter you hear isn't from joy, but from something darker, something ancient, hungry, and eternal? Tonight, on Fear Machine, we take you to the desolate shores of Desolation Bay, where a mysterious carnival appears every 50 years, bringing joy, madness, and tragedy. This isn't your average tale of creepy clowns or haunted rides. No, this is a story of cosmic horror, ancient pacts, and souls bound forever in a cycle of terror. Every small town has its secrets, but Desolation Bay's secret is a legend wrapped in whispers, warnings passed down through generations. The Carnival of Wonders and Whimsy, a place where dreams come true and nightmares are born. People flock to its colorful tints, dazzled by its promises of wonder, only to vanish into the shadows of history. But tonight, we're not just telling the story, we're stepping into it. Join us as we unravel the chilling mystery of the forgotten Carnival of Desolation Bay. You'll meet Elliot Mason, a man desperate to redeem his past, and the group of locals who dare to uncover the carnival's sinister truth. The deeper they dig, the more they realize some doors should never be opened. Some legends should remain forgotten. Are you ready to enter the carnival? Be warned, you may never leave the same. Story 1. The Echoes of Hallowmere Asylum. The story opens in the dead of winter, as a dense fog blankets the long-abandoned Hallowmere Asylum. The building stands in eerie isolation on the outskirts of a forgotten town, its towering silhouette casting long, jagged shadows across the snow-covered ground. The asylum, once infamous for its brutal experimental treatments, has been left to rot for decades, avoided by locals who whisper of ghostly apparitions and unsettling noises emanating from within. Main character, Evan Carter, a determined urban explorer with a fascination for forgotten places, leads his small crew into Hallowmere. Joining him are Jess, his skeptical but loyal girlfriend, Mason, his ambitious best friend and amateur documentarian, and Lila, a history enthusiast obsessed with the asylum's dark past. Evan's obsession with documenting Hallowmere stems from his belief that uncovering its secrets will launch his career into the upper echelons of paranormal research. As they step inside, the atmosphere shifts. The cold, stale air feels heavier, and every creak of the asylum's deteriorating structure echoes unnaturally. They pass the rusted gates into the main hallway, where peeling wallpaper and scattered medical tools tell a story of abandonment and something far darker. Unbeknownst to them, faint whispers ripple through the shadows, growing louder with each step. Evan dismisses their initial unease, attributing it to the building's oppressive history. But when Jess swears she hears distant voices crying for help, a sense of dread creeps in. Despite this, Evan pushes forward, urging his team to set up their cameras. He's determined to prove that Hallowmere is more than just a ghost story. It's the key to their breakthrough. As night falls, the group ventures deeper into the asylum, their flashlights cutting through the pitch-black darkness. They explore the East Wing, known for housing patients subjected to experimental procedures. The deeper they go, the more they encounter inexplicable phenomena. Doors slam shut without warning. Shadows flicker in the corners of their eyes, and the whispers evolve into incoherent screams. Jess grows increasingly uneasy, urging Evan to leave, but he refuses. His passion morphs into obsession, driven by the need to capture definitive proof of the supernatural. Mason, eager for footage, supports Evan, while Lila becomes engrossed in the asylum's records, discovering journals of Dr. Elias Crane, the head psychiatrist infamous for his psychological experiments. Dr. Crane's writings reveal twisted methods. His belief that fear could cure mental illness by confronting patients with their worst memories, trapping them in a state of perpetual terror until their minds broke free or shattered entirely. Lila's findings are interrupted by an echoing cry, leading the group to the electroshock therapy room. There, they find remnants of equipment, and a chair with leather straps still stained with dry blood. As they film, strange occurrences intensify. Mason's camera malfunctions, capturing static interspersed with distorted faces. Jess begins hearing voices calling her name, growing more frantic. Meanwhile, Evan experiences a vivid hallucination. He is strapped to the chair, surrounded by shadowy figures whispering accusations, their voices merging into a deafening chorus. Tensions escalate as Jess accuses Evan of putting their lives in danger for fame. Mason insists on staying, desperate for the footage. Lila, shaken by the journals, pleads for them to leave. Evan, however, believes they are close to something monumental. His denial of the danger blinds him to the growing fractures within the group. Their final descent leads them to the underground basement, where rumors suggest the worst experiments took place. The air grows thick and the temperature plummets. The whispers are now deafening, manifesting as fragmented memories from the asylum's patients. They discover a hidden operating theater, its walls lined with grotesque medical instruments and decaying patient files. Jess's behavior becomes erratic. She claims to see patients wandering the halls. Lila clutches Dr. Crane's journal, whispering about the cycle of fear he perpetuated. Mason tries to film, but finds the camera heavy, as though something unseen is pulling it from his grasp. Suddenly, Evan hears his own voice echoing through the asylum, recounting past explorations. The group realizes they've been trapped in a loop, reliving their night over and over. Each time, their memories reset, but their fear deepens, feeding the asylum itself. The more they succumb to terror, the stronger Hallowmere grows. In a climactic confrontation, Jess breaks, screaming that they were never explorers but former patients of Dr. Crane. The asylum isn't abandoned, it's their prison. Each of them is a victim of Crane's fear experiments, doomed to relive their escape attempts endlessly. Evan refuses to believe it, but as Mason's camera replays their arrival with footage of them already inside, the truth becomes undeniable. In their final moments, the group fragments. Jess succumbs to hysteria, vanishing into the shadows. Mason drops his camera, disappearing after her. Lila, clutching the journal, is absorbed into the asylum's walls, leaving Evan alone. The whispers cease. Silence falls. Evan, trembling, stares into the lens of Mason's abandoned camera. His reflection shows not an explorer, but a broken man wearing a patient's uniform. He whispers, "We were never free." The camera flickers. Static consumes the screen. Blackout. Story 2. The Whispering Woods of Black Hollow. The story begins in the isolated village of Black Hollow, enveloped by a dense, ancient forest known for its unsettling silence. The time is late autumn, with the air heavy and the fading light casting long shadows that seem to stretch endlessly. The village is quaint yet carries a palpable unease, the kind that comes from centuries of whispered fear and tightly held secrets. Main character, Dr. Henry Caldwell, a well-respected historian specializing in folklore and ancient rituals, arrives in Black Hollow. Driven by his obsession with unraveling forgotten legends, he's drawn to the village by its chilling myth of the Whispering Woman. According to local lore, villagers who venture too far into the woods are lured away by the spirit's seductive whispers, never to return. Henry's initial purpose is academic. He aims to document the legend, believing it to be rooted in forgotten pagan rites or ancient superstitions. He rents a small, time-worn cottage near the forest's edge, where villagers avoid his gaze and their conversations fall into hushed murmurs whenever he approaches. His first unsettling experience comes at dusk when he hears faint whispers drifting from the woods. Though eerie, he dismisses them as wind rustling through the trees. As he delves into his research, Henry interviews villagers, but they are evasive, their answers cryptic. They speak of ancestors who bargained with the forest but refused to elaborate. One night, Henry discovers a crumbling manuscript in the local church's archive, filled with symbols and passages about an ancient ritual meant to appease the spirit of the woods. The whispers that night grow louder, as though the forest itself acknowledges his discovery. Henry becomes obsessed. His research deepens, revealing connections between the villagers' bloodlines and the ancient ritual described in the manuscript. He discovers that every 50 years, someone disappears into the woods, their name erased from village records, as though they never existed. Disturbed but fascinated, he pieces together fragments of the ritual, offerings of blood, whispered prayers, and the invocation of the Whispering Woman. Despite the warnings from the village elder, Agatha, who pleads with him to abandon his search, Henry persists. Agatha warns him that knowledge of the ritual is dangerous, that the Whispering Woman is no mere myth, but a force tied to the very lifeblood of the village. Henry brushes her off, convinced that fear fuels her warnings. His obsession strains his rationality. He begins hearing whispers even when away from the forest, their tone alternating between seductive and threatening. His dreams become vivid nightmares of twisted trees and shadowy figures performing the ritual under a blood-red moon. His academic pursuit transforms into a personal crusade, uncovering the truth at all costs. In a desperate attempt to validate his findings, Henry ventures deeper into the forest one night, guided by the whispers. He discovers a clearing with an ancient stone altar, covered in moss and engraved with symbols matching those in the manuscript. Realizing this is the site of the ritual, he feels both exhilaration and dread. However, when he tries to leave, he becomes disoriented. The path twists back on itself, leading him in circles until dawn. Returning to the village, Henry confronts Agatha, demanding answers. She reveals the horrifying truth. The Whispering Woman was once a village girl, sacrificed centuries ago to protect Black Hollow from a devastating curse. Her spirit now lingers, feeding on those who dare seek her out. Henry's presence and relentless curiosity have awakened her fully. Agatha warns that the forest hungers again, and Henry, unknowingly, has taken the final steps to revive the ancient pact. Determined to end the whispers and free the village from its haunting legacy, Henry resolves to perform a counter-ritual he pieced together from various texts. Under a full moon, he returns to the altar with offerings: salt, ash, and a personal sacrifice, his blood. He chants the incantations, believing he can sever the connection between the village and the Whispering Woman. At first, the forest is silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifting slightly. But then, the whispers return, angrier, louder. Shadows coalesce into a form, a pale, gaunt woman with hollow eyes and flowing hair made of twisting roots. The Whispering Woman stands before him, her voice a blend of countless others, each laced with sorrow and rage. She reveals that Henry has misunderstood everything. His research didn't uncover a counter-ritual. It was the final step needed to complete the original one. By offering his blood and invoking her name, he has fulfilled the village's ancient pact. She smiles, a grotesque, hollow grin, and thanks him for freeing her fully from her spectral prison. Henry tries to flee, but roots burst from the ground, ensnaring him. The villagers, drawn by the ritual's power, gather at the forest's edge, their eyes vacant, as though possessed. Agatha stands among them, tears streaming down her face. "It's too late," she whispers. As dawn breaks, the forest is silent again. The villagers return to their homes, memories of Henry fading, his name vanishing from records and minds alike. The only trace left is a new inscription on the stone altar: "The historian who listened." The forest remains, its whispers waiting for the next curious soul. Story 3. The Silent Choir of Ravenscroft Abbey. The story opens in late autumn, with cold winds howling through the crumbling remains of Ravenscroft Abbey, a Gothic monastic complex shrouded in mist atop a remote English hillside. The abbey has been abandoned for over a century, its stone walls cracked and stained with the passage of time. Once a beacon of piety and isolation, it now stands as a decaying monument to forgotten faith and unexplained tragedy. Main character, Eleanor Grant, a seasoned investigative journalist with a reputation for exposing hidden truths, arrives at Ravenscroft Abbey. She is determined to uncover the mystery behind the sudden disappearance of the Abbey's monks in 1887, a mystery that has baffled historians and fueled local superstitions for generations. The official records offer no explanation, only cryptic references to the final rites performed before their vanishing. Eleanor is driven by personal demons. The recent death of her brother, a devout priest, has left her questioning faith and the thin line between belief and madness. She believes that solving this mystery will give her closure, or at least an understanding of the forces that led to her brother's obsession with the divine. Her investigation begins with scattered fragments, forgotten parish records, weathered journal entries, and whispers from locals who avoid the Abbey grounds. As night falls, she discovers a hidden room in the Abbey's lower levels. Within it, she finds a series of old, dusty wax cylinder recordings labeled with Latin inscriptions. Ultima Vox Sacra, the final sacred voice. Intrigued, she sets up her portable recording equipment to listen. The first cylinder begins with low, mournful chants, unlike any liturgical music she's heard. The voices are harmonious but unsettling, blending reverence with a haunting undercurrent of despair. As she listens, faint whispers seem to echo through the room, though she's alone. Eleanor brushes it off as her imagination, but an unease settles deep within her. Eleanor spends the following days transcribing the recordings, piecing together their context. The chants, while mesmerizing, grow increasingly disturbing. References to an unknown deity, Domini ex umbris, the Lord from the shadows, emerge, suggesting the monks had abandoned traditional Christian doctrine in favor of something ancient and forbidden. Her nights become restless. She wakes at odd hours, hearing faint chanting in her dreams. What begins as curiosity morphs into obsession. She isolates herself in the Abbey, poring over every clue, determined to find the truth behind this deity. The second recording intensifies her fixation. The chanting grows frenzied, punctuated by sobbing, as if the monks were both terrified and entranced by the force they summoned. Eleanor's mental state deteriorates. She starts experiencing auditory hallucinations. The chants echo in her ears even when the recordings aren't playing. She notices shadowy figures in her periphery, always vanishing when she turns. In one harrowing moment, she finds herself chanting along with the recordings in a language she's never studied. Panicked, she records herself and listens back, only to hear her voice blending perfectly with the monk's choir. Her rational mind fights to explain it. Stress, sleep deprivation, perhaps the power of suggestion. But deep down, she knows something ancient is awakening. The Abbey itself seems alive. Its walls pulse with a dark energy, and the air thickens with an oppressive presence. Eleanor confronts the parish archives, uncovering that the monks were part of a secret sect attempting to transcend mortality by merging their souls into one eternal voice. A choir meant to awaken Domini ex umbris, who would grant them divinity. Realizing she may be falling into the same trap, Eleanor resolves to destroy the recordings. Yet, every time she approaches them with intent to burn or break, she hesitates, feeling an overwhelming compulsion to protect them. Her mind fractures further. Is she herself now part of the ritual? On her final night, Eleanor plays the last cylinder, desperate to confront the force head-on. The recording begins with the monks chanting in unison, but soon devolves into cries of anguish. Their final words, Domini ex umbris, non decinimus cantere, we will never cease to sing. The chanting stops abruptly, replaced by silence. But Eleanor hears more, breathless whispers growing louder until they become deafening screams. The room darkens, shadows coalescing into human forms. Eleanor recognizes the monks, their hollow eyes fixed on her. They begin chanting, their mouths moving without sound until the chant spills into her mind. Her voice joins theirs involuntarily, filling the void in the choir. She clutches her head, trying to stop, but her lips move on their own. As the ritual reaches its peak, Eleanor feels her consciousness slipping. Memories of her brother flood back, his prayers, his warnings about the dangers of blind faith. She realizes too late that her pursuit of truth was never hers alone. She was drawn here by forces beyond comprehension. Her defiance is futile. Her last coherent thought, I was never meant to leave. The shadows engulf her. The next morning, the Abbey stands silent once more. Yet deep within its ruins, a faint recording plays on loop. Eleanor's voice is now part of the choir. The Abbey has its final member, and the silent choir of Ravenscroft sings on, waiting for the next listener to complete their unending hymn. Blackout. Story 4. The Forgotten Carnival of Desolation Bay. It's late summer in Desolation Bay, a small, coastal town nestled between jagged cliffs and turbulent gray waters. The town is isolated, its population dwindling year after year, burdened by economic decline and eerie local legends. Rumors swirl about a mysterious carnival that appears once every 50 years, promising delights, but leaving despair in its wake. Main character, Elliot Mason, a former investigative journalist turned local shopkeeper, lives a quiet, regret-filled life in Desolation Bay. Once renowned for his exposés on urban legends, he retreated to this remote town after his last major investigation ended in disaster. Haunted by guilt and a need for redemption, Elliot clings to the notion that some mysteries are worth solving, no matter the cost. The carnival arrives without warning, its gaudy tents and twinkling lights appearing overnight along the windswept shoreline. Flyers flutter through town, bearing the name Carnival of Wonders and Whimsy, one night only. The townsfolk are drawn by morbid curiosity, recalling whispered tales of past carnivals and the tragedies that followed. Elliot, skeptical but intrigued, decides to attend, driven by an insatiable desire to uncover the truth. As the sun sets, the carnival pulses with life. Laughter fills the air, and colorful performers weave through the crowd. Yet there's something off. The performers' eyes shine with an unnatural gleam, their movements too fluid, their smiles too wide. Elliot senses the unease beneath the joy, but pushes forward, determined to document everything. Inside one of the tents, he stumbles upon an old photograph pinned to a corkboard. It depicts the carnival from 50 years ago, yet the performers are unchanged. Same costumes, same faces. He snaps a picture, but immediately feels a wave of dizziness. The air thickens with an otherworldly energy. Something ancient stirs beneath the surface of this seemingly innocent spectacle. Elliot gathers a group of locals. Nina, a fearless teenager with a fascination for the supernatural. Marcus, a retired fisherman who lost his father to the carnival 50 years ago. And Claire, a schoolteacher whose dreams are haunted by vague memories of a carnival visit from her childhood. Together, they resolve to uncover the carnival's true nature. Their investigation begins innocently enough. Interviews with attendees, scrutinizing old town records, comparing past carnival events. However, the deeper they dig, the more disturbing their discoveries. The carnival has no paper trail, no permits, no historical records beyond whispered lore. Each carnival 50 years apart is identical, and each appearance coincides with unexplained disappearances in Desolation Bay. One night, Elliot and his group sneak into the carnival grounds after hours. Beneath the cheerful facade, they find a labyrinth of tunnels running beneath the tents, filled with strange sigils carved into the earth. In the center of the underground chamber stands a colossal, rune-covered altar, pulsating with a faint, otherworldly light. Nina, compelled by the glowing runes, reaches out to touch them. The instant her fingers graze the symbols, a deep, resonant hum fills the air. Shadows flicker along the walls, and the group is overwhelmed by terrifying visions, twisted beings with grotesque, ever-shifting forms. A booming voice echoes from the depths, whispering promises of eternal wonder in exchange for servitude. They flee the tunnels, but something has changed. Nina begins hearing whispers even in silence. Marcus becomes lethargic, his strength draining daily. Claire, once calm, suffers from night terrors. Elliot remains steadfast, though he feels the carnival's influence tightening around them. He realizes the performers aren't just actors. They are victims of an ancient cosmic entity, trapped in an eternal cycle, feeding off the town's fear and souls. Desperation leads them to confront the carnival's ringleader, Lazarus, a tall figure with sharp features and unsettlingly bright eyes. His voice is hypnotic, promising that those who resist the carnival's lure are doomed to suffer more than those who embrace it. Lazarus reveals the truth. The carnival is a conduit for a cosmic force beyond comprehension, feeding on human souls to maintain its eternal existence. Elliot and his group decide to fight back, hoping to destroy the altar beneath the carnival. They believe that by severing its connection to this cosmic force, they can break the cycle. Armed with makeshift weapons and knowledge from ancient texts, they prepare for one final assault. On the final night of the carnival, Elliot and his group infiltrate the underground tunnels. The air is thick with a choking mist, and the hum of the altar is deafening. They set charges around the structure, determined to collapse it. Just as they ignite the first fuse, Lazarus appears, his presence overwhelming, as if the air itself bends around him. He speaks calmly, offering them a choice: submit and become part of the carnival, or perish. Nina hesitates, drawn by his words. Marcus collapses, unable to resist. Claire screams, fighting the pull. Elliot, despite his fear, refuses to yield. He shouts for Nina and Marcus to fight, but Lazarus's voice drowns him out. In a final act of defiance, Elliot lights the fuse, triggering an explosion that collapses the tunnel around them. The ground trembles, and the altar cracks. For a moment, it seems they've succeeded. But as the dust settles, the altar's glow intensifies. One by one, Elliot's companions vanish, their bodies dissolving into the mist. Elliot stands alone, realizing too late that the ritual wasn't about destruction. It was about completion. His actions fulfilled the final step, binding their souls to the carnival eternally. Lazarus approaches, his expression one of triumph. "Welcome," he whispers. "You've become one of us." Elliot's vision blurs as his form shifts, his memories fading. His voice joins the carnival's eternal chorus, laughter and whispers mingling under the dark sky. The Carnival of Desolation Bay remains, waiting for the next generation of souls to wander into its deadly embrace. Fade to black. The laughter fades, but the whispers remain. Elliot Mason and his companions thought they could destroy the carnival, but instead, they became part of it. The Carnival of Wonders and Whimsy doesn't just take your soul, it twists it, binds it, and turns it into something unrecognizable. As the sun rises over Desolation Bay, the carnival vanishes once more, leaving behind empty streets and unanswered questions. But if you listen closely, you can still hear it. The faint echoes of laughter carried on the wind. Maybe it's just the sea breeze, or maybe the carnival never truly left. So next time you hear about a traveling carnival promising wonders beyond imagination, think twice before you enter. Because once you do, there's no turning back. This has been Fear Machine, where we explore the darkest corners of human fear. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you want more stories like this. Until next time, sleep tight. And remember, the carnival is always watching.